This is the sweet sound of success with Sue Wilhite, Profit Attraction Master. Michael J. Herman's first actual business was selling candy to other students in 6th and 7th grade. Business number 2 was selling gold jewelry door to door in the 9th grade. Since then, he has launched, built, and run more than a dozen successful multi-million-dollar enterprises here in the United States and in Eastern Europe. Mike Herman has the uncanny ability to conceive and perceive market opportunities and turn them into gold. He has 14 published books, and number 15 is due out later this year. With more than 4,000 paid professional presentation, he has positioned himself as one of the foremost authorities on motivation and small business entrepreneurship. Mike has worked with clients and apprenticed with Magic Johnson, Sherry Lansing, Steve Wynn, Sir Richard Branson, T. Boone Pickens, Lee Iacocca, and Olympians like Maurice Green, Leon Taylor, and Brian Clay. He's ready to work with you too. Welcome, Michael, to my podcast.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Very nice to meet you. Very kind things you said, even though I wrote them.
Yes. Well, I'm glad we finally got you scheduled and on. I have been looking forward to this for weeks now.
Me too.
So, yeah. And so I'm just going to explain to my viewers and listeners how this show works. So the subtitle of the show is The Hero's Journey for the Entrepreneur's Soul. And because of that, we are doing the show in the format that was laid out by Joseph Campbell in his work about storytelling and myth making, because entrepreneurs, let's face it, are mythical creatures. and by that, I mean, we're epic. You know, entrepreneurs do things.
And we make stuff up that was never there before.
Right? Absolutely. We're creation masters. We bring things into being that had never been there before. So we're going to talk about Mike's ordinary beginning, which I always laugh at because no entrepreneur had an ordinary beginning. The call to action, what launched him into his mythic, epic proportions. The big hairy monsters, as I call them, that entrepreneurs get to play with on a regular basis. What were some of Mike's that he got to bring out and carry on with? And two things that I think are really important for people to learn about entrepreneurs is that we've never done it alone. That is the real myth, is that we can do it by ourselves. We've done it by ourselves. Nope, doesn't work that way. There are always allies, mentors, guides, sidekicks, people who lift us up and help us get to where we are going. And finally, sort of in that realm, there are the people that once we become an entrepreneur, once that first magical money exchanges hands, something changes in us that doesn't necessarily change for the rest of the people in our lives. And Joseph Campbell calls that coming home. After the hero has had all of these grand adventures and his perspective has widened, he knows who he is, he's become a champion. But the folks next door don't necessarily have that same experience. And so there's sometimes a disconnect. And it's almost as epic in many cases as the actual adventure. So Joseph Campbell calls that coming home. How does that work? So, Michael J. Herman, what was your ordinary beginning?
Well, I guess my ordinary beginning was not really so ordinary. I started off my life at the age of 5 with a traumatic brain injury. I fell 12 feet from the top of a platform and landed on the concrete slab on my head. And and suffered multiple brain bleeds and was in a coma for 57 days, had multiple craniotomies to relieve the bleeding and the pressure. And when he came out of the coma, I was blind, paralyzed, and aphasia. I couldn't see, I couldn't speak, and I couldn't move the left side of my body. So the rest of my life, from the age of 5, has been a journey, an epic journey of conquering obstacles that no one else had ever really conquered because my conditions were so unique.
Right.
So when I got my vision back, I had already relearned how to walk and how to talk, but my vision came back in a very slow process. And I describe it like this: when in the middle of the night, when you turn the light to go to the restroom, everything's a flash, a crash, and a blur, and it snaps into focus like that. Imagine that snap taking 9 months. That's what my vision was like. It took forever for my vision to evolve from total blindness to blur, to shades and shadows and outlines and figures and then colors. And so even then, when I got my vision back, I had tunnel vision. I had massive blind spots. I had evolving conditions where my vision changed every week or every 2 weeks. So I developed a compensatory strategy for that reality of eyesight, and then a couple of weeks later it would be different. I'd fall down the stairs, I'd fall off a curb or bump into something. So from a very early age, I learned very quickly and very, very effectively how to evolve and adapt to new and changing environments. So how did that help me as an entrepreneur? Well, I graduated college and found out very quickly that I wasn't qualified to do anything. I got a degree in film and television production, and the equipment that I learned on was obsolete. I graduated, I started going for job interviews and production jobs, and the equipment that I learned on was 25 years old, and everything was state of the art. I didn't know how to do anything. So I had to learn how to be an entrepreneur. I was a TV writer. I had to learn how to make a living as a TV writer. That's very entrepreneurial in a sense, because you have to be your own boss. However, as a TV writer, you're at the employ of producers, studios, executives, agents, directors, story rooms, all the other contributors into making motion picture and television content.
But the competition is fierce.
Oh, it's.
I mean, they talk now about red water. I mean, the water must have been crimson.
Well, I don't know that reference.
Oh, red water, blue water, where there's a lot of competition is where the sharks are.
Oh, well, I think it's worse now than it was then. In the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of money being thrown at creatives. If you basically had a pulse, you could get a job or get a deal somewhere. I mean, they were just looking to spend money like crazy for a while, and then things changed, and I changed and went from being a TV film writer, producer, and making a living doing that to like that. I was a motivational speaker. I had no experience. I had no context for what that would be like, but I knew I had a message, and I knew that people wanted to hear it. So it took me 3 years to figure out how to make a living as a TV writer. It took me 3 years to figure out how to make a living as a motivational speaker. And the way I found out how to make a living as a motivational speaker was one day I found out that I'm not supposed to be an inspirational speaker. My story is inspirational, but that's not what people want to pay me to do. They want to pay me to make them laugh. And I found out that I am a very good humorist speaker. And that's how I started making a living as a speaker, was as a humorist. It took 3 years to do that. And into my third year of speaking, I became a syndicated columnist. I launched my own brand, my own portal called the Motivational Minute, which ran from 1997 till just a few years ago, 5 days a week, every day, every week of the year, never took vacation weeks.
Wow.
And published over 7,000 daily published editions of the column. We were in over
Wow.
200 magazines and newspapers around the world. We were subscribed to by over 500 corporations, organizations, government entities, individuals, and it was a what Tom Antion called the predecessor to the modern blog.
Right,
and,
right.
and Sam Horn also agreed with that. So that was probably my greatest launch into entrepreneurship, because the medium didn't exist before, and there was no template to charging for money for electronic content back then. American Express had been trying to do it for years, and Citigroup and Travelocity, and they weren't making a go of it. They were losing tons of money. I finally figured out how to do it. They've done pretty well at it themselves now.
Yeah.
But what I've learned is, in my many different entrepreneurial endeavors, whether it be in publishing or speaking or TV or children's entertainment, is that it takes a plan and it takes a vision and it takes a village. You can't really do it on your own. My father helped me launch a children's entertainment business in 1994 that still runs today, 27 years later, where we provide entertainment to children all over Southern California. And that too didn't have a template. That business also, I had to invent the platform and the construct and the context and the marketing and the launching of it. And luckily it's endured. BalloonTyphoon.com, it has continued to be an amazing way to make money, work with kids, be outside, help families, help organizations, and be at events.
That's fantastic. I mean, talk about epic.
Well, I always think myself as kind of like a phoenix. I had this tremendous crash at a very early age, and I rose out of it. Right. And then I've left a lot of things out of that spectrum. But there were many times where I rose out of flames or rose out of crashing or just not having any lift at all, to make my own. And the truth is,
setbacks. It's the big hairy monsters.
I like to credit Jeffrey Combs, one of my mentors and former coaches, who describes me as completely and utterly psychologically unemployable.
Yep.
I don't follow directions well. I don't like when people aren't nice to me. I don't like asking, when can I go to the bathroom? When can I go home? Can I eat my lunch? And I just don't do well in hierarchy, in authority. So I knew, that was evident early, like within the first few months out of college. I just didn't really like having to be at the beckon of other people, under the thumb of other people. And while it's great for other people, I have to say that entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Not everybody can be the boss. Not everybody can have an idea or a project that they can launch into reality. Some people have to do the ant work and build the ant farm. Some people have to build the hive so that the queen bee can make the honey.
Right. And they're helpers, and that's what they do, and that is their gift and their talent and what they do best.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely critical and necessary. And when people are entrepreneurs, and that's their gift and that's their ability and that's what they need to do, being a worker bee is just stifling.
Yeah.
And
also on the flip side, being a worker bee and having to go into upper management or bossship is traumatic. I know
it's demoralizing.
I know somebody who was a very successful executive assistant, administrative assistant at a very big company. I won't say the person's name or their company, but it's one of the biggest companies in the world. And she had been there for over 20 years. And the company merged and changed and collapsed departments and entities. And she was forced into a position where she had to be in a sales position. She hated sales. She hated the industry that this sales was in this company, because she was now not in this, she was in this.
Right.
And they decided that they were going to push everybody in the company up through the funnel. They wanted everybody to move up in the company. Well, she didn't want to do that, and she really had to get out of there. She was only there for about a year before she switched into another division of the company, because it's not for everybody. You can't you can't make a square be a triangle.
Right.
So some squares are happy being squares, while
yes,
some circles just can't get around themselves.
Exactly. So, Michael, you've mentioned a couple of people who have been mentors or coaches. Is there anybody else?
Well, I think my greatest mentor is probably my dad. My dad was a huge entrepreneur. He started out on Wall Street as a specialist and a stockbroker in his 20s and early 30s. And then he went into the vending machine business, and then he started another business. And he had a very unique and gifted talent. Like I would say unique, because I've never met anyone like him, who can get an idea and a concept for a project, a product, a service, a company, and within days, literally days, have it up and running. Wow. My dad was a rhinoceros. He didn't go backwards. He didn't look over here. He didn't look over there. He was really very focused on and able to do multiple things at once. But he was able to launch these very major different brands and projects quickly and easily. I did not inherit that from him. Mm-hmm. So I had to figure it out on my own. But he did teach me. I will say, watching my father and modeling my father gave me the confidence and the discipline to stay with a project, to stay with a new entity, a new birth, long enough for it to be able to get its legs and crawl and walk and run. Right. A lot of people can't give it 2 years, can't give it 5 years. And sometimes it takes, most small businesses fail in the first 3 to 5 years.
Right.
So if you can't get past that 3 to 5 year mark in a small business, you may not be able to make it to 10 years. But
right.
For me, the idea is not even getting to 3 to 5 years. The more important thing is getting to profitability, because you don't want to be in debt or in the red those 3 to 5 years. You want to be in the black and be able to push yourself forward and keep going.
Yes.
Get some side hustle with muscle.
Yes, exactly. Make it work.
And so here's, I really want to say this before I forget.
Yes.
What's really key with what I just said is mindset and support. Okay, if you're not someone that's able to reach out and ask for help, to look at someone else and ask them how do you do that, or this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm encountering, and these are the steps I've taken. What do you see as remaining to be done, or what do you see as not effectively being handled right now? Where's the gap? If you can't ask for that feedback, you might have a stumble. You have to really be able to look at yourself and take objective criticism, objective feedback, not criticism. Feedback.
Yes, coaching. Take coaching.
And implement it. Being able to take it, being able to take a hit on the jaw is one thing, but being able to stand up and keep fighting is something else. And taking the hit on the jaw is when your coach or the feedback says, you know what, you effed up. That was not the way to do it. Or that was really dumb. Do it this way, and then actually do it.
Right. Right. Yes. I can't tell you how many folks I have coached who have said, yeah, well, that doesn't really work for me. It's like, well, then you might want to back up a number of steps because this is how it works. This is how it actually works.
And you have to do the work. You have to be willing to do the work. It's not 1935 or 38 or whenever it was when a movie producer walked into Schwab's drugstore on Hollywood Boulevard, saw Shirley Temple drinking a soda and said, I'm going to make you a star. I don't think that happens anymore. I don't think anybody says, that is a great concept, that pitch. Here's $1 million to go make it happen. I don't think that happens. I think you have to really do the work. And if you're not willing to do the work, somebody else will.
Yes. Yes.
Like
you have to be both a starter and a finisher.
Well, here's the thing. I'll say it a different way, if I may. You have to be the CEO of your life and of your business. Nobody else is going to put on your shoes and put on your pants and button your shirt and make your lunch and drive your car and do your work at the office. That's not how CEOs work. CEOs work like this. They wake up at 5 a.m. and they say, what has to happen today? What do I need to do to make these results happen today? Or that's a great idea. How do I make that happen fast today? That's what CEOs, that's what A-type personalities and entrepreneurs do. I have a problem. How do I fix it? Here we go.
Right. And getting to the part about asking for help again, CEOs definitely don't do it by themselves. They call in their peeps, whether it's the board of directors, if it's a high level issue that they need to solve, or they call in their staff and say, okay, marketing, we need to do this, manufacturing, we need to do this. Here's what needs to happen. And you sort of cast the spell and it does that, but you have to have the support in order to do that. And maybe as an entrepreneur, maybe you don't necessarily have a staff yet, but I'll tell you, in this day and age, there are lots of resources for helping you to get things done.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. My dad, going back to my dad, he was such an inspiration because he really didn't have that in the last 20 or 25 years, I guess 20 years of his life when he was working. He was a one-man operation. He had a couple of employees that worked for him, but he didn't get input. He just ran the show and he did it well. But he had a small company at the end. But when he had big companies, he had a board. He had at one time 200 employees. I remember when I was a teenager and when I was a kid, hundreds of employees. So the point is get support, get input, get feedback, and be eager to get feedback. The more you crash and burn, the more you get to fly high.
Yes. Weirdly, but true.
Yeah. I mean, Michael Jordan, how many missed shots did Michael Jordan take?
Oh, yeah. He talks about that all the time.
How many failures did Thomas Edison get? Or Benjamin Franklin, or even, I mean.
Well, I come from the Scottish tradition, and in Scots, there's Duncan the Bruce, who failed 6 times fighting against the English. And he was defeated, he was in a cave, he was dying, and he was watching the spider spin a web. And the spider kept trying to connect one wall of the cave with a thread, and it kept missing and it kept missing and it kept missing. And finally, on the 7th try, it connected and was able to build his web. And he went, okay, we're doing it one more time. And he was successful that time. So, sometimes you go down, you got to get back up again.
Imagine if you didn't see that spider.
Right.
We
wouldn't have such a good movie. Anyway, so it sounds like your father was very supportive of your entrepreneurial journey. What about others in your life?
I've had some very good mentors, and I'll credit one of them who had a huge impact on my life. His name was Bill Brooks. Bill died about 10 years ago, I guess. He was a huge entrepreneur. He was a guy who was a cop, who became a college football coach, and then the president of the college, and then started a company. I mean, he rose like this, not like this, but like this.
Right.
And he was a brilliant speaker and entrepreneur. And Bill gave me 2 pieces of advice that, like that, as soon as it came out of his mouth, transformed my business. Made me more money than any other mentor I've ever had. And to tell you what that was, I'd have to tell you the whole context of the conversation, and the business is not really worth it. Needless to say, he was very, very influential. You know what? There's a guy named Jim Rohde, who's out of Phoenix, Arizona. I don't know if you know Jim. Jim Rohde is a professional speaker, but Jim Rohde also has a company called, oh God, I'm drawing a blank, how embarrassing. He has a company in the medical industry, and they make products, tongue depressors, ear,
oh wow,
the things that go in your ears, Band-Aid straps, and all kinds of things that you see in the doctor's offices and dentist offices. And he also had a poster club. So here's a story that I'd like to share about keeping the vision of a project to see it through, and the magic of how it happens. So I used to save the pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and dollar bills that didn't spin at the end of the day in a can.
Okay.
Big giant potato chip can. And I'd fill it up with all the money that didn't go back in my wallet would go in the can. And then when it would get filled up, I'd cash in for the big money, like $100 bills or 20s, and I'd empty it again and I'd start over again. And I kept filling that up, and I would meet my goals of saving money for a stereo or a trip or a bike or something. But what happened was I kept dipping into the can.
Mm-hmm.
I need money for this or that. I take some cash out and I write myself a note. I owe the can $20. I owe the can $5. I owe the can $25. And when the can was empty, I had all these IOUs. So I realized that I have to be able to put the money in and not take it out. So I got myself a 5-gallon sparkless water jug. I started filling it with money. Pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, 50-cent pieces, 1s, 5s, 10s, 20s, and 100s. And I would put them in the bottle. And in a year and a half, I filled it up to the very top.
Wow.
And I met my goal. I bought something, I don't remember what. 2 years later, I filled up another 5-gallon jug with even more money. Bought myself a trip for 2 weeks to a resort in Mexico, I think. 2 years later, I filled up another one, had even more money, because I was really focused on any change, any bills. That even in my wallet, if I had 1s or 5s I didn't really need, I put them in the bottle.
Right. So
when I finally finished filling up the 3rd bottle, I had a professional photo shoot done, and I had a poster made called, and it was of this giant filled up bottle. It was very inspiring. I mean, all that money, seeing all that money, it really says something. Right. And my goal was to have a professional photo made, and then I even developed a whole marketing strategy, which ended up crashing and burning. And making a poster was going to cost me tens of thousands of dollars to have this poster made. And I really wasn't married to that idea. So this kind of festival, I even went to trade shows all over the country trying to find bottle manufacturers and container manufacturers. I was trying to find a way to make this poster idea a reality.
Right.
And I kept hitting these massive walls that said, no, this is not a good idea. No, you can't do this. No, it's not going to work. I mean, over and over and over. And then I was at the National Speakers Association convention one event, and I was sitting having lunch next to this amazing guy named Jim Rohde, who I have all the respect for in the world. And we were talking. He asked me, what are you working on now? And I told him about my poster idea. And he said, well, can I see the picture? I pulled the Polaroid out of my wallet. He said, I'd like to buy that picture. I said, for what? He said, I have a poster club. What's a poster club? Well, I provide 30 posters every month to doctors and dentist offices all over the country, and I need content. So we made a deal where he gave me thousands and thousands of posters for free in exchange for my image.
Oh my God.
And a year and a half later, my book, Become the Complete Champion, One Motivational Minute at a Time, available on Amazon and Kindle, came out. And I sent Jim a copy because he's a friend of mine. And his executive secretary called me up and said, we'd like to option another image from your book. So they took one image and a different quote and made another poster, and I got more tens of thousands of posters.
Wow.
So the lesson here is that deals come, partnerships come, projects come from places where you'll never, ever expect them to come. They'll come when you're not even thinking about them. But even if you're thinking about them, you have to keep going. If I just let the bottle poster idea drop when I couldn't figure out how to do it, I never would have had that conversation with Jim.
Right.
I never would have had the picture in my wallet. And
Right.
Jim and his customers would have benefited. I wouldn't have benefited.
Right. Yes. Yes. One of the things that I teach my clients is looking when things are seemingly very dark and, crashed and burned and all of that, there is an unexpected resource coming out of that you just don't know about yet, and you need to look for it. It always works.
Or as Willie Jolly says, just before a breakthrough, right after your breakdown is your breakthrough.
Yes. Yes. Always.
Just
always.
Have to be willing to break down a lot.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's the keys. You, as an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to and wanting to fail a lot. I'm looking look at Elon Musk. I mean, he's at the top now, but he wasn't always. Do you think every invention, every idea he ever got at the beginning went global? No, of course not.
I'm kicking myself because I had the opportunity to work at Tesla when it first started. And I turned it down because that particular job was it was an industry that I was leaving to become an entrepreneur. And so I said, thank you, but no, thank you. And it went. So Michael, I have one extra bonus question, if you were, for the interview. Of everything that you do right now, what is the favorite thing that you do? What's the thing that if somebody, a customer or, somebody came up to you and said, hey, Mike, let's do this, you would go, oh, thank goodness. Yes, that's the best thing ever. What would that be?
Spending time with my wife. Definitely. Aww. Everybody should do that, really, because it's fantastic.
Yeah. Spending time with your wife?
Spending time with my wife is
We
fantastic.
should all spend time with your wife.
What?
We should all spend time with your wife.
When you asked me what's the best thing I like to do?
Yes.
Spend
Yes.
time with my wife.
Yeah.
The answer to your question is I love bringing out of people their stories, their messages, their missions. I believe that when you're gone, whether you believe in reincarnation or multiple universes or whatever your philosophical or spiritual bent is, once you're gone from this life, no one else can tell your story.
Right.
No one else can take what's in here and in here and put it in here.
Right.
No one else can tell your story quite the way that you can. And it upsets me, it hurts me, it saddens me when I see people waste their story, not tell the stories and manifest the missions of their life, whether it's a book or a screenplay or a musical opus or a business plan or a vacation or building a house or whatever that dream inside of them that lives inside of here is, and they don't get it out. I love helping people get that from in here out here. And I have a patent pending technology for helping people to do that called the Herman process, Herman method.
Nice. So how would people find out more about you, the Herman process, your books, your projects, what you're up for? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Probably call me. We're here 5 days a week, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. 818-441-9288. 818-441-9288. You can also reach me at michaeljherman.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Michael J. Herman, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Pretty easy to find Michael J. Herman. But this is what I want to say in closing, is whatever it is that you do, wherever it is you go, whoever it is you connect with, do not waste the time you have. It's finite. Let your message out. Get your projects done. Let your greatness explode, because there's no time like right now to do that.
Yes. Thank you. Wonderful. That was, yes, absolutely 100%. There is only now.
Well, there's later, but you don't know how much later there is.
Yeah. Assume there isn't.
There's really only now to do
anything.
To make your message count. And if you're going to do it later, why not just do it now?
Yes.
Do it now, get your greatness out, and get to the next great thing that you have to manifest.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Michael J. Herman. Thank you for being on the show.
I love connecting with you. This is fun. I think you're amazing. Your audience is really engaging. I hope we get to do this again. I'd just like to mention my new book coming out this year called Side Hustle with Muscle. Stop putting your talents to the side and start your small business. It literally teaches anyone and everyone how to take your ideas, your passions, your projects, your gifts, and turn them into profit-making side hustles.
Yes, absolutely. We can't wait for that one to come out because it is so needed today.
Side Hustle with Muscle.
Right now. Side Hustle with Muscle. Looking forward to having it come out this year. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks,
Thank
Sue.
you. And thank you to my viewers and listeners on the sweet sound of success. What are your dreams for your business? You know what drives me crazy? Really smart business owners denying their talents because they've been taught it has to be hard, because they've been taught that they don't deserve their gifts, that they're not worth anything. They've been taught that their gender means they can't express their genius. I'm Sue Wilhite, and I want you to have access to your genius. I want you to go out and rock the world with your genius. So I created the Call to Action Coaching Program. It's all about getting to the heart of you and what you've got to share with the world to make a profitable business that thrives and allows you to make a difference in the world. Click the link to sign up for the Call to Action Coaching Program today. Don't let your genius go unnoticed.